Hello legends. So in this video, I'm going to show you how you can get OpenAI's new structured outputs in Voiceflow. So let me just demo what this is. Let's ask this ChatGPT, how many R's in the word strawberry? This is actually a really cool example that I saw on another YouTube channel. And you can see it's incorrect because there's actually 3 R's in the word strawberry. So I could either prompt this ChatGPT and say, hey, slow it down. Why don't you break down the word letter by letter and then count that way? And then I can actually get the response to be 3. Or using OpenAI's new structured outputs, when I'm creating my ChatGPT completion, I can force the AI to first take a breath and show me you're working, and then secondly, give me the answer. This is reducing the need to have such complex prompting just by using the structured outputs, which is a structured JSON schema. Let me show you that the exact same question gets a more accurate response. So there we are. We have an answer, which is 3, which is correct. And then we have our reasoning. So let's dig into the actual API call. Now, all we're using is the standard ChatGPT completions URL. We've got a content type or authorization, which is the bearer and API key. And then all the magic happens in the raw body. Let me copy this and bring it out into a JavaScript block so we can zoom in. Okay, so the structure of the body is we're setting the model, and there's only a couple of models that we could use for ChatGPT completions that have the structured outputs, and they're here. And I'll go over this in a second. We'll actually build out this API call ourselves together. But we have our system role, which is URL logic and reasoning assistant. This is our entire prompt. So it's very basic. We're not saying, hey, break anything down. So it's super dynamic. And then we're also introducing our variable, which is the last utterance. It's the message that was sent from the customer. And now we don't have to prompt and say, hey, you're going to get a word, so break it down letter by letter. Instead, we can rely on ChatGPT itself to figure out, to basically do the working step by step, just by saying, do the working step by step. So this is ultra dynamic. Okay, let's keep going. We have the response format, which is in JSON schema. And what we're requesting from this response is an object, a JSON object that has 2 properties. One is the reasoning steps, which are the steps leading to the final conclusion. So, let's write out strawberry letter by letter and then count each letter. The first letter S, is that an R? No. Second letter T, is that an R? No. So that's an example of how the reasoning steps would look. And then we have our second variable, which is the actual answer. And that's the final answer after taking into account the reasoning steps. So we basically said, okay, do the working first, and then determine the answer, and then supply the answer. And then we're requiring that we have these 2 variables as outputs. So let's look at the API response. So if we look at this bit specifically, so this content variable, this contains a JSON string, which holds the reasoning steps, which is that first variable that we want to access. And if we scroll all the way to the end, it also contains the answer variable. So since this is a JSON string, we need to parse this so that we convert it into a JSON object, and then we can access the reasoning steps, pull them out into a variable, and then do whatever we want with them. And then we can access the answer, pull it out into a variable, and display it to the user. So as you can see here, we're inside choices. We're inside that first object. Then we go down to message. Then we go down to content. So it's a little bit fuzzy over here, but that's what we've done. We've accessed the response. We go to the first object in choices. That's why we have these square brackets and a 0. And then we have .message and .content. So we've saved this string to the variable called content string, which is shown over here, the content string. And then we have a JavaScript step where we essentially parse that content string, and then we access the 2 variables of answer and reasoning. So to explain this JavaScript step, we're initializing 3 variables. So we have content, which is something new just for this JavaScript step. Then we have answer, which is a variable which we display to the user, and then same thing with reasoning, we display to the user. So you have to make sure that these variables are also variables on your Voiceflow canvas. The second step is to parse the content. So we get our content variable equals to the response, that response that we had from the API call, which is that specific content JSON string. Then we parse that, we turn it into an object. So now this content variable is an object, and we can go content.answer, and we can get the answer out of that string, which is now an object. And then we can also get content.reasoning steps, and then we have the reasoning steps. So that JavaScript step saves those two sets of information into variables. And then over here, I've just returned the answer variable to the end user, and same thing with the reasoning variable. But you could pull this out and plug this into a set AI step and then say, hey, summarize these reasoning steps into something a little bit more concise. And then you can combine that with the answer and then deliver that to the end user. So it's pretty cool because now you have, different information you can work with. Hey guys, just quickly, I'm trying to grow my channel. So I'd appreciate if you like the video, subscribe to my channel, and drop a comment about what kind of content you want to see next. So looking at structured outputs, let's build out a JSON schema together. So I'm going to scroll down to step 2, supply your schema in the API call. So we've got a curl example here of an entire API call where we're using the same URL that we're using in Voiceflow, which is the ChatGPT completions URL. We've got our authorization, our content type, and then over here, we have the raw body. So I'm going to copy this and go across to our ChatGPT completions API call. Once again, the exact same URL. We have content type, we've got authorization, and the raw body is this thing that I just copied across. So I'm going to paste it into here. And before I use this, let's just examine what this raw body looks like. So looking at the required variable, we can see that we have steps and final answer. So just like our initial example, the steps are the reasoning steps, like the working, and then the final answer is the actual answer. And we can see that this is a helpful math tutor, and it has a static input, which is a math problem. So we're going to take this and replace this with the last utterance variable, so we can make this specific assistant dynamic. And then we're going to feed it in this exact same example. And looking at the JSON schema, we can see that we're returning an object that has a couple of properties. So we have the first property is the steps, which again is one of the required properties that we need. And this is an array of an object that contains two variables, so explanation and output. So I don't need something so complex for my example. I just want steps to be a string. I don't want to have an object over here. And then we have our final answer, which is a string. So just as this is a string, I want to convert all this into a string as well and not have a nested object inside an object already, just because it's going to get a little bit too difficult for me to work with in this very basic video. So going across to Voiceflow, let's copy this raw body, paste it into our JavaScript step here, and let's start editing. So we want to remove this and replace it with last utterance. Awesome. So what I want to do is I want to have steps be an array of strings. So string, and then I'm going to delete these properties because they were initially used for this object. And then also I don't want to have any of this stuff. Okay, so this actually, I don't know if it's a valid JSON object, so I'm just going to copy it and go across to ChatGPT and say, can you fix this? All right, awesome. So let's copy this and plug it into our API call. Now the final thing that we need to do is edit this JavaScript step. So initially our original schema used answer and reasoning steps, but this schema is going to return steps and final underscore answer. So let's just edit this, steps, and then final underscore answer. And now let's copy the math equation and run it through our assistant. Awesome. And we have our answer along with the reasoning. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see other examples of structured outputs, just drop a comment below and I'm happy to look into it. All right, see ya.